30 seconds. Stand by.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Jordan, thank you for helping put the show together tonight, along with Chelsea and Susie. And thank you, the viewers at home who joined us this evening. Jordan, let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell everyone what's happening on the show tonight. The starting line is, of course, brought to you by Motion Pro. In the Next Time Try This segment, we'll be talking about paint strippers and what to look for the next time you're going to strip your tank. The Moto Showcase, we have a 1976 YZ125C that I restored. We'll tell you more about that. And here's the problem segment. We've got some great questions that came in from you, the viewers, in the past week. We'll address each one of them. I'm looking forward to bringing that to you in just a little while. In the What's It Worth segment, a 1978 Kawasaki 250 that recently sold on eBay. The bike was original. It was pristine. You're going to really enjoy this. Garage Tour. We've got a new segment tonight. I'm really looking forward to bringing it to you. We have our guest. His name is David Allen. He's going to be on in just a little while. We're going to be live in David Allen's shop, and you're going to be seeing it here. The Expansion Chamber, our new segment. We've got another video sent in to us this week from Robert Oscar Pomeroy. We'll be popping it into the VCR later and letting you get a look at that. Trivia returns to Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll have a question for you later on in the show. You'll have an opportunity to win the book, Finding Number 49, Compliments of Keith Geisner. If you're watching the show on Facebook or on YouTube, please share the show. Tell your friends about it. Tell them they can come down. We're going to be giving away a coffee mug later on. Of course, they'll have an opportunity with the trivia contest. And if you're on YouTube, please share and comment AMSOIL, a wonderful sponsor of the show. AMSOIL, the first in synthetics since 1972. Also, if you are on YouTube, don't forget you can watch all the episodes of Vintage Motocross Q&A and listen to all of our shows from Vintage Motocross Radio. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get a little alert when we're live on Wednesday nights. You'll be able to watch the show from your big screen TV. And speaking of that, here's how you watch the show professionally, okay? You have your phone, you're on your couch. You'll put Vintage Motocross Q&A on your television on YouTube. Then you can see it on your big screen. You can comment on your phone. It'd be a lot easier for you. You can get involved in the show with more comments and see the show on your big screen TV. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you get a second right now, go put us on the big screen TV while you're watching on your phone. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors, Motion Pro, Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty Products, Northwest Mako CZ, AMSOIL, and our new product sponsor, Racer X. Tonight's Next Time Try This segment is brought to you by Vinco. Keep the ride going. Tonight, I want to talk to you about paint strippers, gas tanks, what to look for, some of the tools you'll be needing in order to get the paint removed from your gas tank. The first thing we want to talk about is, of course, safety. You're going to want to have a pair of safety glasses like this on hand. Another thing is, paint stripper is very caustic. You're going to want to have a pair of gloves close by as well. Depending on your work conditions and the ventilation that you have, you may want to have a respirator or a mask as well. You may or may not need that if you're working outside. Some of the tools you're going to need to get this job done are a scraper, of course, paint stripper, and a few other things along the way that you might want to use. To get that paint away from some of the welds along the bottom of your tank, you're probably going to want to use steel wool at some point. We're going to show you in just a moment how to do that. Also, I mentioned a scraper. You do want to use a scraper to remove the paint. Also, close by, you're going to want to have either your garbage can from your garage with a plastic bag in it, or a bucket like this with a plastic bag, so you can put the stripped off paint in there and you can get it out of your way. Something else very, very important. This stuff is very messy to work with. You're going to want to protect your workbench. A big piece of cardboard works well, so does a towel, anything like that. Newspaper is also very handy to have around. Put it on the bottom of your bench or on top of your workbench. This way you're ready to go when you start to strip your paint. Now, we have a few different tanks here, and I want to talk to you about those tanks before we begin. Some gas tanks don't have any primer underneath the paint. One example is an Elsinore tank. You're all very familiar with this. There is no prime underneath that green stripe, but it's only on the green stripe. Another tank you may not have primer on is a Husqvarna tank. You can see one here where the paint is partially stripped, and you can see that there is no prime underneath there. So some of your strippers that you will buy in Home Depot, Lowe's, some places like that, are going to work well on tanks like that. For some of your other tanks, which do have prime underneath, such as this 1979 CR250 tank, you may need a stripper that is a little more aggressive. Hopefully in your area, you can buy that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Something I want to point out too, take a good look at your tank before you begin to strip it. This Husky tank is a good example again. These tanks are welded down the top. So if you're going to be scraping or using stripper there, be careful. The stripper, of course, using steel wool is what you want to use along that weld. You don't want to sand it. Now, in some cases, some people will say, well, I like to sand the tank first, get the paint down as thin as I possibly can, then use a stripper. That's really, really good advice. That's the way I do it. Some of your tanks have been repainted over the years. Some of the paint can be very thick and very, very durable. So I would always advise that you sand the tank first before you strip it. It's also a good advice because when it gets toward the end and you have the tank stripped of the paint, you're going to have areas like this right here where you can't get in there with your sanding. So you're going to want to use your stripper around there. I prefer to sand the tank first, then use stripper. Some people like to strip it first, then sand it. I don't like to do it that way. However you do it, well, whatever works best for you is the way you're going to do it. We're going to get a couple of close-up shots here right now. I'm going to show you the effect that the stripper has on some of these tanks and also how you can remove it. Now, there's one thing that every manufacturer of every paint stripper agrees with in their directions, and that is to put the stripper on your workpiece, but only brush it in one direction. You can go this way, and of course, follow your directions to see how long you actually need to leave that paint stripper on there. Okay, about 15 minutes have gone by. The paint strippers begin to work on that paint pretty well. This is the Husky tank that didn't have any prime underneath the paint. I'm going to use a little steel wool, and it comes off pretty easily over the weld. I probably could have let it sit here a little bit more, but for the purpose of the video, you can see where it's eaten through that paint relatively easily. And this is the weld I was talking about a little bit earlier. That's why you don't want to get on there with sandpaper or with your vibrating sander, because you don't really want to affect the integrity of the tank. The Honda tank did have prime underneath it, and this stripper happens to be affecting the paint on this Honda tank a little bit more than it did certainly on the Kawasaki tank. So, and right where I had it on there, the heaviest, really took it off relatively easily. This is where your steel wool really comes in handy. Once it gets full of the paint and the stripper, you could just dispose of it, and it's a lot easier than using anything else. I didn't have to use any scrapers or anything else really to remove the paint on this tank. Now, this is the tank that I told you that had the epoxy primer underneath it. It was a little difficult to get off, and the paint seemed a little more durable than some of the factory paint that I've removed on the past two tanks too. Now, you can use a scraper just like this I like to use something like this. It's got an angle to it, and I can put a straight edge in there, but I don't dig into the tank. I make sure I keep the angle just right, and then I can go up that tank and scrape off my paint without scraping off or doing any damage to the metal. Now this is taking it off, but I would have to go over this several times with stripper in order to really get it down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash this tank down a bit with a little acetone to make sure I remove all the stripper. And then I'm going to show you how to use a sander in a situation like this. This is also why I keep a bucket handy, so you can just get rid of your excess paint and stripper on there. Also, you can use a sander like this, a little jitterbug sander, a vibrating sander. They just take any sandpaper like that, and you can go over your tank with it. Saves you a lot of time as opposed to sanding it by hand. Of course, always remember to be careful where a tank is rounded or it has an edge, something like this. You don't want to let that sander sit there too long. You want to just go around the flat spots and get down as much as you can. So that's it for our Next Time Try This segment tonight. I want to thank Vinco for being a sponsor of this segment. Vinco, keep the ride going. In the Moto Showcase tonight, which is sponsored by Preston Petty Products, we're going to be taking a look at a 1978 Kawasaki KX2. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to be taking a look at a 1976 YZ125C. I got my Moto Showcase confused with my What's It Worth segment. This Yamaha YZ125C is a bike that I had restored for Mike Owens in the Legends and Heroes Tour. They were taking it around to the different races of the Supercross and the Motocross throughout that year. This was a really nice project that I took on for Mike for two reasons. Number one, Mike was a great guy and a good friend. And the YZ125C is the first bike that I owned when I was 15. So it was a bike that was special to my heart, and I was looking forward to restoring it for Mike. If Jordan goes through the slides, I'll tell you a little bit about what's going on with it. We, of course, stripped the engine of all the black parts, repainted everything, had all the hardware replated as well, and it all turned out so very, very nicely. The side panels were original. We did replace the spokes. No, I'm sorry, we didn't replace the spokes. I had these spokes replated. I polished the original spokes, had them replated. We refinished the hubs and all the axles, hardware, and fasteners that go along with it. Furthermore, we had an NOS gas tank, which was such a gift on a project like this. The tank was beautiful. I remember Mike saying he paid about $550 for it at the time. It was brand new in the box, and it looked great, just like a little crown on top of that bike when it was all done. 76 YZ125C, of course. The first year of the Monoshock 125, it had the correct aluminum dish sprocket on the back, all the correct hardware on it. Everything was replated, and it came out just absolutely beautifully. Correct hardware, the number plate, everything about the bike was just a real fun project for me to do. Brought back so many good memories, and it was just such a wonderful thing to do for a great guy like Mike Owens. It brought back a lot of good memories for me of my time there with Mike at the Legends and Heroes Tour. And there it is, 76 YZ125C for the Legends and Heroes Tour and the late Mike Owens. Preston Petty Products was the sponsor of that segment. And if you need number plates, lighting, fenders, plastic hits, grips, and more, go over to their website, PrestonPettyProducts.com. They're also on Instagram, and you'll be able to buy all those wonderful plastic products that we all loved so much when we were kids, and available since 1971. And Paul Stannard has brought them back since 2016. He's brought so many other good things to the table too for Preston Petty Products, including some number plate brackets and some other things that he has reproduced now. And they're all available the same way they were. Paul Stannard, thank you so much for being a sponsor of the show and for all you do to keep Preston Petty Products alive and out there in the spotlight where it should be. And here's the problem segment tonight, which is brought to you by Motion Pro, best place to go for specialized tools, cables, and controls. Here's the problem. We've got a few questions. Let's see if we can shed some light on them for a few of our viewers. Up first, Mikey P wants to know, Joe, you often speak of tank liners on the show for steel tanks. What is the best one available for fiberglass tanks? Well, I'll tell you, Mike, the same one I recommend for aluminum or steel tanks is the same one I would recommend for a fiberglass tank. It's made by Caswell. It's really great to use. The number one thing you got to keep in mind is to follow the directions. The biggest problem people have with tank liners, and I'm not really a fan of tank liners, I just want to say that. We'll talk about that in a second. But the biggest mistake people make is not prepping the tank properly before using the liner. You need to use some acetone. You really need to get out all the residue that's in there. And if you're doing it on a steel tank, you want to make sure that all the rust is out. But as I just said a moment ago, I'm not a big fan of tank liners, mostly because aluminum welding has come such a long way, and the removal of rust, there are so many products out there like Evapo-Rust and things like that. We really don't need to try and rectify a rust problem in a steel tank with liners anymore. There's ways to get that rust out, and that's what I recommend you do, and use an inline filter. But your question is certainly valid, Mike, and whether it's a Montesa or a Bultaco, whatever fiberglass tank you might have, Caswell gas tank sealer is still the way to go. Ken Thomas, I need a kickstand and a stock-looking headlight number plate for my 1981 Kawasaki KDX 420. Can you help me? Yes, I can help you very easily. You can get your headlight assembly right from DC Plastic. They make a beautiful replica. The green is just about spot on, and it looks just like the regular one that came on the bike originally. If you're looking for an original part, I think you're going to have a long road to hoe ahead of you. Probably not going to be so easy to find. But in the meantime, while you may be looking for that, DC Plastic has one at a reasonable price. You can get one from them. As far as the kickstand goes, I had a lot of luck as soon as I put it into a Google search. I put in KDX 420 kickstand, Google, it popped up. Some places still have them available, brand new. It's a good place to start. A lot of times when people are looking for parts or you're looking to identify your bike, go to a Google search, put in the serial number of your bike there. You'll be surprised at what comes up. I want to thank you for the question, Ken, but that's what you do for a headlight assembly and for a kickstand. John Shockley, I recently purchased a 1978 Mako 440. It may need a primary chain and gears. Is there a difference in chain quality on replacement parts like this, and where can I find them? There is absolutely a difference in the quality of parts these days. A lot of stuff is coming out of China. Some of it's good, some of it is not so good. I would recommend you go over to the Northwest Mako CZ website, ask Alan Brown about a primary chain for your bike, and as far as the gears go, I don't think anyone is reproducing those gears. But Alan Brown would probably be able to tell you if he has some of those gears in good usable condition, but that's where you want to start with your primary chain. Thanks for the question, John. Paul Knudsen, can you discuss record keeping on rebuilds and restorations and what most people are doing to keep things organized? Yeah, I can. What you want to do, whether you are restoring a bike for someone or you're doing it for yourself, you want to keep good records. You want to get yourself a good composition notebook, keep notes in there. As you're purchasing things and you're getting receipts, save those receipts, staple them into that book. Keep notes, take pictures of your receipts as well. Why do I recommend this? I'll tell you why. Number one, of course, if you're doing a job for someone, you're going to need to know all of your parts and outside services, how much you spent, how much your customer is going to have to pay you. If you're doing a bike for yourself and you're either doing a rebuild or a restoration, there may come a time where you want to sell that bike. When you go to sell that bike, you'll be able to deal from strength. You'll be able to have some leverage when somebody comes to buy that bike from you. What do I mean by that? The bike's going to be finished. You're going to have receipts of everything you purchased. When they look at your bike and they love it, and you're asking, I don't know, however much, $5,000. They're going to say, well, $5,000 is too much. Well, you're going to show them your list and your receipts, and you're going to say, well, here's how much I have invested in the bike. This is how much the bike cost me. Plus, it took me 40, 20, 60, however many hours to finish the bike. You'll be able to deal from strength with a buyer when that time comes. That's why it's important to have a paper trail on any bike you restore or rebuild. Yes, a lot of times you don't even want to know how much you're spending to get that bike finished, or you may not want somebody else in your household to know how much you've spent. But it's important that you know, because when the time comes to sell that bike, you're going to want to know what you have invested in it in time and money. So get yourself one of those composition notebooks or at least some kind of accordion file. Save all the receipts, make notes, take pictures of it. If you buy stuff at a swap meet, make a note to yourself, write it down, save all the receipts, and that's the best way to do it. We're going to take a commercial break right now. If you're watching the show on Facebook or on YouTube, please share the show. Don't forget to comment AMSOIL. When we get back, we're going to have the garage tour up next. This is a brand new segment. It's going to be live with David Allen. I'm looking forward to bringing it to you. Stick around. We'll be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Jeff at Motion Pro, showing you our Bead Pro combination tire tools today. Now these are a very innovative tire tool in that they are multifunctional. They both are great for breaking the bead of your tire as well as spooning the tire on and off the rim. Now we have two versions. The first is the standard Bead Pro. These are forged 7075 T6 aluminum in construction, very lightweight for tool pack use. And then we have the Bead Pro FS, the FS standing for forged steel construction. Now these are great for shop use. They are a little bit longer, so you have more leverage. They're 16 inches long versus 9.8 inches long for the standard versions. Now the geometry of the tools are about the same between the standard and the FS versions, but as I mentioned, the materials are different and the lengths vary a bit. Now they have a nice ergonomic feel in your hand, and this cross T feature keeps your hand from slipping as you insert the tool into the bead of the tire. And on the one end, you have this innovative tongue and groove feature, which leverage the tire off of the rim. It easily breaks the bead on both off-road wheels and tires, as well as street applications, even those with large safety beads. Now the opposite end have this nice smooth spoon profile, which easily brings that tire up and over the rim to bring it off and then spoon it back on. These are affordably priced, so go ahead and pick one up for your tool pack as well as for your shop use. They're available from your favorite powersports dealer nationwide.
Well, Jordan, we're ready for the garage tour. This is a new segment of the show. We're going to be speaking to David Allen and taking a look at what he has in his shop. Hi, David.
How are you doing, Joe?
Good. Thanks for taking some time to talk with us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A tonight. When I saw your shop, I thought it would be perfect for our first segment here. So why don't we begin with, I see a Suzuki RM back there with an aluminum tank. Let's go back there and take a look at that bike and tell us a little bit more about it.
All right, let's go take a look at it. Is this the guy you're talking about right here?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is my 1977 RM370. I built this last year in the hopes of doing some vintage racing because I get hurt on the modern bikes, and hopefully I don't get hurt on these guys.
Okay. And you've got some pipes hanging up, I saw in the distance. Tell us about some of those exhaust pipes you have up there.
You bet. So the one that I'm most proud of is this guy right here.
What is that?
That is a Suzuki Japan titanium 48-piece pipe. Just a very few of those were issued to the team. And it goes for my Brian swing bike right here. Problem is I have kids that like hammers, and so I got to keep it up there.
Okay. And what do you figure that pipe weighs, David?
What's that?
What does that pipe weigh?
Oh, shoot. Well, I know it weighs about twice as less as the factory silencer. So I don't know the exact weight, but it's scary.
It's pretty light, huh?
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
What is that other Suzuki that's on the bench there underneath the pipes?
Oh, this one here?
Yes. Yes.
This is actually a 1976 RM125A. This is something that my wife has actually been building. So I've been kind of walking her through, coaching it, using some of your videos to help us, and it's been a lot of fun.
Let's move down the line a little bit past that Brian Swink bike and tell me a little bit more about the bike that's next to it, the 17 Suzuki.
All right, so we got the 93 Swink. Down here, we've got the 1990 Larry Ward. So that's his factory replica bike.
Now, this looks like a McGrath bike.
Yeah, you're right. This is a McGrath's 1990 KX125. So it's actually been, this bike was a lot of fun. He actually helped me with a lot of it, with the 38 sponsors that they had. Back then it was a little bit different. So he helped me out with a lot of the placements, where to get some parts, and it was a really cool experience.
So you were in contact with Jeremy McGrath while you were building this bike?
Correct. Yep.
Very interesting. What about that Honda?
Time. Over here we have an 89 Stanton CR500 replica. Pipes on the ground. I apologize.
Okay. Now you've
But
got
this
some
is a bike that
interesting,
scares me.
you've got some interesting gear up there on the wall too, that I thought belonged to Steve Lampson, or you have some Suzuki stuff. Tell us about that.
So this is, Steve Lampson was on Team Suzuki in 1992.
Mhm.
That's his helmet. That's his team pit shirt. And then over here we have his 94 Honda gear. He was nice enough to sign for me. There's his championship gear in 95. That's the actual gear that he wore in the moto that he tied up the championship. So that was really cool. Then we got his 92 Team Suzuki stuff. We got a Mike Brown Team Peak chest protector.
Now in your shop, it looks like it's pretty well equipped with a vapor blaster, a press. I'm guessing
Correct.
you have, you do a lot of hands-on stuff there, huh?
Right. Yep. I do. A lot of people throughout the country send me stuff to vapor blast. For example, here's an engine that I did for Ernesto Fonseca. And that's going to go on his 2005 CR250.
You
So
have the whole bike there for Ernesto, don't you?
Yeah. Yep. I'm building two bikes for him, actually. This one is his 2006 CR450. That's actually his factory motor. That's a non-VIN frame, and we've got the magnesium carb in there as well. We've got some HRC clamps, just some cool stuff.
And where are you located, David?
I'm actually in Utah.
Is this something you do full time?
It is. Yep. So I'm living my dream at the moment, and I'm helping people build bikes and having some cool experiences, meeting a lot of really great people, and having a great time.
Well, David, swing the camera around so I could see you again.
All right. There's my ugly mug right there.
David, I wanted to thank you personally for taking the time to be on Vintage Motocross Q&A tonight. This was really just the first time we've ever done this, and you've made it look pretty easy, and I hope some other people are willing to do this in the future as well.
Well, thank you so much. It was an absolute honor.
You get your address to Jordan or to myself. I want to send you a little thank you gift for being a part of the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
David Allen, thank you.
See you guys.
Well, that went relatively smoothly, I would say. I do want to thank David Allen again. And if anyone out there is interested in doing a garage tour with us, please contact me. Don't do a video yet. Don't send anything in. Just send me an email or contact me through Facebook, and we'll have you on the show once we figure out what we'll be talking about, and we can get a look at your shop and have some questions and answers ready for when we do come live into your shop. While we were doing that, Susie did pick a random share giveaway winner. Jordan, were we doing that now, or do we have another segment coming up first?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
We're good for the random share giveaway?
Yeah.
Okay. Random share giveaway winner is Kim Pinnell. Kim, Pinnell, Kim Pinnell. You are the random share giveaway winner. Thank you for commenting AMSOIL. You're going to be getting a Vintage Motocross Q&A coffee cup. So get us your address and we'll get a nice cup out to you. Compliments of Vintage Motocross Q&A. And I want to thank AMSOIL again for all their support for the show. AMSOIL, the first in synthetic oil since 1972, I think. In the What's It Worth segment tonight, which is sponsored by Full Circle Racing Limited, we're going to be taking a look at a 1978 Kawasaki KX250 that was recently sold on eBay. What do you think this bike went for? In the comments section, type in what you think this bike went for. I'll give you a little bit of information on it, maybe before you type what you think it's worth. It is an original bike. It is not restored, and the only thing that's not original about it is the number plate background. Other than that, this is a one-year-only bike. A 1978 KX250, only about 600 were imported into the U.S. This is original, not restored. It is a survivor. The seller claimed that it was all original except the number decals, and he thinks a sprocket and maybe the front tire. He says the bike was easy to start. It runs, it shifts, it stops as it should. There are no leaks and nothing's wrong with the bike. I got some close looks at the pictures, and I didn't see anything out of the bike that seemed out of the ordinary, including the original rear tire. And the shocks and the gold anodizing and everything really looked great on this bike. It has been on display in the seller's office for over a year now, but he feels it's time for it to move on. Those lower fork protectors are a very rare item as well. So it was sold recently in Kentucky. How much do you think this bike sold for? Are people commenting? The bike sold for $5,000. $5,000. Well, the hardware was right on the bike. I had a little mark on that silencer, nothing really to worry about, but everything else on the bike really looked nice. I was discussing it with my friend Mark Hildebrand from Nightmare Racing as well, and we both agreed that the bike was well worth $5,000, probably short. I think the bike was short by about $1,000, maybe $1,500 bucks. $5,000 was the sale price, and that's what it was worth. Full Circle Racing, sponsor of that last segment, they're still running a wonderful special on their front and rear hubs. Well, they will powder coat them, they'll clean them, disassemble them, blast them, mask them, and powder coat them in either a satin finish or gloss for just $50 a hub. If you want the backing plates done as well, it's another $10 more. And if you want a custom color, it's only $20 more, a one-time charge, and Tom McAllister will get your wheels looking like new. It's a really great little offer for $50 a hub. You could send Tom your hub, he'll refinish them, give you new spokes, new nipples, new hoops if you want them, put it all back together and ship them right back to you. I recently had some rims rebuilt by Tom. Very fast turnaround time, exceptionally reasonable prices. Great people to do business with. Full Circle Racing Limited and Tom McAllister. Be sure to look them up. Vintage Motocross buyers and sellers price guide page. Always a big help to so many people out there who are looking to buy bikes or sell bikes. What we do on that site is discuss the value of things. Nothing's for sale. There's no want ads. There's no fluff. Go over to the Vintage Motocross buyers and sellers price guide page with over 16,000 members and thousands of sales from private sales to auctions. You'll be able to get a real great idea of what your bike may be worth at the Vintage Motocross buyers and sellers price guide page on Facebook. Trivia, time has come. Somebody's going to win this bike. No. They're not going to win the bike, Jordan. We already gave away a bike this year. I'm not giving away any more bikes. I'm still down a pint from the last one. We're going to be giving away a book, Finding Number 49 by Keith Geisner. You'll be able to call in to 925-234-8181. The question is, what year did KTM win their first MX World Championship and who was the rider? What year did KTM win their first World Championship in motocross and who was the rider? Call in 925-234-8181. Operators are standing by for your answer. The winner is going to get a copy of Finding Number 49, an award-winning book by Keith Geisner. Call in now. In the product spotlight tonight, which is sponsored by Northwest Mako CZ, we're going to take a look at something special that they have. What is it? A CZ engine case splitter. If you guys out there are rebuilding your CZs, you're going to need a case splitter. This splitter will work on a variety of CZs, I believe from 1970 all the way to 1976, 77, maybe even 78. But for $44, you need a case splitter. It's available from Northwest Mako CZ. And when you call there or email Alan Brown, you tell him that you saw it here on Vintage Motocross Q&A, and your Uncle Joe is going to cover shipping. $44 for a case splitter, available now at Northwest Mako CZ with free shipping if you tell Alan Brown that you saw it here. Thank you, Alan, for all you do for the show. in the expansion chamber segment tonight, which is sponsored by Full Circle Racing as well. We're going to be taking a look at a videotape that was sent in to us by Robert Oscar Pomeroy. Let's get a look at it right now.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to teach how to increase the stiffness of your fork spring, the spring rate, without having to purchase an aftermarket spring. Specifically in the pit bike areas, mini bikes, RM80, KX80, YZ80, XR75, those are almost impossible to find stiffer springs for. And then even in the 35mm, 33mm, 32mm fork, those generally have to be custom made. Things got a lot better when we got to the 43mm fork, and those are parts that people stock. But we're talking today specifically with the small diameter forks that we vintage race with all the time, or racer pit bikes or whatever have you. As you can see here, I have a little YZ80 fork spring, very tiny. This is a 35mm fork spring. So how we're going to do it is we're going to apply some physics to it. And I've been in the spring business for about almost 30 years. So this formula right here is the spring formula for spring rate. This is spring rate. This is the diameter of the wire itself. This is the modulus of steel. We're not going to change the steel. We're not going to alter that. We can't change the wire diameter. This is the diameter of this coil here. We're not going to alter that. The only thing we can do is change N, which is the number of turns. So if we reduce this number, this rate has to go up. Now, having said that, if I take this spring, and I can give you the exact numbers, but I will tell you this, that if we take this and cut off about anywhere from 6 to 10 turns. So when I say turns, if you're looking at the wire starts here, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 turns. I cut off this one. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your coil spring, and you're going to put something in between the 10th or 11th turn, or how many turns you're going to cut off. And like I said before, don't do 2 or 3 turns. You're not going to notice it. You got to get into 6 to 10 turns if you're making a cut in a spring this size. So when you go to cut it with your die grinder, make sure that you put something in there, because you don't want to cut across a bunch of active turns you're going to leave in your fork. So what I've done is I took it to die grinder and cut it, and you can see that the end of it, it's helical and it's kind of jagged, and when it goes to sit, it's not going to sit real pretty in your assembly. So what I do is I take a grinder, something like this. I grind a flat edge right here, and try to limit yourself to about half a turn. Don't go all the way around, but get a flat edge. And now it's still going to stick up. And with some MAP gas, again, try to protect that turn so you don't overheat the other turns. And you heat this last half a turn until it turns red, and by simply pushing on it, it'll actually collapse and become flat again, and this will allow you to have a proper seat on your spring. And then when you install the spring, it'll be shorter and stiffer. And so what I like to do here, once I've got it shorter, to give you an example, this is 60 millimeters down the hole now, and my cap is 30, and so I really just want to run about a 10 millimeters of preload in that spring. So I need 40 millimeter gap. So you can buy these at the hardware store. This is 3/4 inch PVC. They sell caps, cap ends. You can use a cap end, or this is a junction here. This happens to be 40 millimeters. It fits right down in there. And then when I put my fork spring, I've only got about a 10 millimeters of preload in there, and I'm done. And in that spring, to give you an example, on that 35 millimeter fork, I went from a 0.3 kilogram per millimeter spring to a 0.4, which is a very good increase, and it took me probably 15-20 minutes per spring. So try that. It's a physics solution to an old problem.
Robert Oscar Pomeroy. I never went to college, but I'm guessing it was a lot like that. I want to thank you for sending in that video for the expansion chamber. While we were away doing that, we did get a trivia contest winner. This is Joe. You're live at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Who am I speaking with?
Good evening, Joe. Mark Hector from Colima, Washington.
Mark Hector, thanks for joining us tonight. My trivia question was, in what year did KTM win their first world championship, and who was the rider?
Kennedy, pronounced that right. Gennady Moiseev, Russian rider, and he won championships in a few different years, but 77 and 78 on a KTM.
Yeah.
And then
There he is, Gennady Moiseev, in 1974 for KTM. He did win again in 77 and 78. Now, Mark, let me ask you a question. Being we're here and it's a live show and we can have some fun for a second, do you really feel that Gennady Moiseev was the 74 world champion, or was Jaroslav Falta?
I have to go with Falta.
Okay. Hey, I want to thank you for calling in. Susie has your address, I'm sure. We're going to get you a copy of Finding Number 49 by Keith Geisner. Thanks for calling in, Mark, and for playing along with us.
Okay, great show, Joe.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
And I don't know if Jordan has the slide or not, but it happens to be Gennady Moiseev's birthday today. He did pass away a few years ago, but today would have been his 73rd birthday. We're going to take a commercial break. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. Or if you're on Facebook, keep sharing the show or comment AMSOIL. We're going to go to a commercial break right now. What?
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
This Week in Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X Magazine. Here it is right here, Racer X Magazine, available online and on your newsstand now. Racer X, the greatest publication in motocross magazines. And they're a new segment sponsor of our show. And I want to thank Scott Wallenberg and Davey Coombe for making that happen. They are the sponsor of This Week in Motocross History. The most pivotal Florida Winter AMA series in history began on February 1st, 1976 at the North Florida Raceway in Jacksonville, Florida. These were the days before Supercross dominated the first half of the calendar year. In fact, the 76 AMA Supercross series would not begin until March 6th in Daytona, and it only lasted for 6 rounds. The Florida Winter Series was run by Bill West, were the place to be for preseason training. And many of the riders got their starts there, and many of the factory teams were there in 76, including Tony DeStefano, Danny Laporte, Steve Stackable. Husky was there with Ken Howerton, Jimmy Ellis with Can-Am, Galen Mosier, and so many more. Rex Staten was there, former 3-time 250 national champion Gary Jones was there riding his Ice Low that year. Remember that? The Jones Ice Low, 1976. And there were a lot more guys there too. But it was the appearance of a couple of rookie guys that really left everybody wondering what had happened. There were 2 guys from the West Coast. One's name was Bob Hanna, who had just raced 1 AMA Pro National in 1976, finishing 6th in the last 125 in San Antonio, Texas. He was barely known outside of the California desert. He was fast, he was confident, he was determined enough to catch Yamaha's eye, and they signed him to a prospect to race in 1976 in the 125 Nationals. The other guy, of course, was Oregon's Rick Burgett. And he had some great races aboard an OW26 Yamaha as well. So that's what happened this week in motocross history, that Florida Winter Series. And Bob Hanna got his start, and so many other guys were down there. And it's pretty interesting to think of how big Supercross is today with 17 or 18 races in a series, and how back then it really wasn't even on the radar too much. But this Florida Winter race was. I want to thank Racer X for being a sponsor of that segment. In the announcements tonight, we got a lot going on as far as racing goes. But before that, I want to tell you about my guest this week on Sunday at 11 a.m. on Vintage Motocross Radio. It will be Curtis Leverton. for weeks now, for over a year actually. You have seen the commercial on the show for Vintco. They've been a wonderful sponsor of the show. They make so many amazing parts. They have over 650 products in their catalog, and Kurt Leverton has been around for a whole lot longer than most people realize. He had other businesses before Vintco, and he's had some interesting times in his life with OSA motorcycles as well as race cars. We'll be talking about motorcycles, we'll be talking about Alfa Romeos, and Curtis Leverton's time at Vintco. So please join me on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. where my guest will be Curtis Leverton. Now we're going to get on with the announcements about the races that are coming up Tuesday, March 9th in Daytona. If you're going down for Bike Week and you're going to be there for the Supercross, stick around, because on Tuesday afternoon, you're going to have a chance to ride on the infield of the Supercross with your vintage bike. There are 34 vintage and current classes available. I know that Scott Wallenberg is going to be there on a Monarch. So many other guys are planning to go. So get down there for Daytona Bike Week, enjoy the Supercross over the weekend, and then get a chance to get out there on that same sand right next to that track where today's racers are riding. You'll be able to get out there on your vintage bike. March 9th, Tuesday, Daytona. The White Lightning guys down in Carolina, they got some great sponsors between Racetech and Haggerty. They've got some nationals coming up for cross country, motocross, and trials, March 12th, 13th, and 14th. That's at Silverhawk Plantation, Buffalo, South Carolina. You can go on their website too. It's an AHRMA event. You can see all the things that are going on there. There's other races coming up, including the MX The States that happens at Shady Brook Golf Club in Sumter, Florida. That's February 20th and 21st. Believe it or not, that's only about 3 weeks away. So if you're interested in getting down there to the Motocross The States, you want to start making plans now, get down to sunny, warm Florida. And boy, don't some of the people in the Northeast need some sunshine right now. What do we got next, Jordan? Tammy and Ralph Greenhill, wonderful people, great friends, and always supporters of vintage motocross. They've got an event coming up for 2021, TT Scrambles season opener on February 28th. That is at Glen Helen, and I believe it's on the truck track. And Rod Lake Racing, of course, always pays for the kids to race. Kids always race free there. The 2020 awards from last year, they will be given out on Saturday night, February 27th, at the Glen Helen Museum. So a wonderful weekend ahead, put on by Ralph and Tammy Greenhill. American Retrocross, February 21st, the week before the Greenhill race at Glen Helen Raceway. It's round 2 of American Retrocross. They put on a real great series down there too. So if you can't make it to the one at Glen Helen that Tam and Ralph are putting on, maybe the week before you can hit the American Retrocross event. AHRMA Southwest, they've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up too, including the Dave Boydston Duel in the Desert. That's the 24th year that race is going on. Also, Redwood Engineering, the AHRMA National Series is going on February 6th. You've got the Racetech AHRMA National Post Vintage on February 7th. The Next Generation Motocross Series also on February 7th. A lot going on in the Southwest coming up in February. And February's here. Vintage Motocross Q&A t-shirts and hoodies are still available. The t-shirts are still $19.99. Follow the link in the description of the show. If you want a hoodie, go over, follow that link. You'll be able to find out what the hoodies go for. It's got the beautiful logo across the front. It's got my autograph across the back. Vintage Motocross Q&A hoodies. And you can send in a picture of yourself wearing one. We would love to see that. Be sure to include pants if you are taking a picture. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available. Contact me. I'll get you a sponsorship proposal. You'll be able to see some of the benefits that all our other sponsors are seeing and have been seeing for over a year now. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are available. We'll put something together for a budget that's right for you. Get a hold of me. I'd like to talk to you more about that. That's a wrap for this episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank Jordan, Chelsea, and Susie for helping me put the show together. I want to thank you, the viewers, and Mark Hector and David Allen and everyone that joins us every week. Don't forget the radio show at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sunday. My guest will be Curtis Leverton. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A. You want to see the dog? Gino! Gino! He's coming. Come on, Gino. There you go.